Anyone who has built a quantitative trading strategy knows the specific sting of this reality, a backtest that generates a smooth, upward trending equity curve on historical data, only to bleed capital the moment it goes live. The difference between that theoretical, simulated edge and the actual, bankable cash in your account is known as the execution gap. This decay is rarely caused by random market noise. Instead, it is the result of a sequence of structural, measurable frictions that occur every time an order interacts with a live exchange. This simulation results scorecard acts as an audit trail for that decay. We can read the bottom table from left to right to track exactly where a strategy loses its edge. Looking at the unweighted percentages, this specific strategy generated a theoretical profit of 295.30%. Yet by the time the trade settled, it resulted in a final realized loss of negative 152.54%. To understand where over 400% of that performance vanished, we run the data through a 5-step P&L reconciliation pipeline. By breaking the trade lifecycle down into isolated components, a developer can clearly distinguish between a mathematical flaw in the core logic and an inefficiency in how the trade was executed. The execution gap is simply a chronological pipeline of financial degradation. To preserve an edge, you have to manage each stage of the drop-off. The pipeline begins on the far left with gross P&L excluding slippage. This metric calculates the profit or loss at the exact price point where the strategy's conditional rules, like a moving average cross, are met, assuming zero execution delay. You can think of this as pure alpha. It measures the raw predictive power of your algorithm, assuming perfect liquidity and instant fills. This establishes a baseline diagnostic. If this initial number is negative, the strategy's underlying logic and entry rules are flawed, regardless of the trading environment. Gross P&L excluding slippage is the ceiling of a strategy. Moving one column to the right, we hit step 2, the slippage effect. This is the most aggressive form of market friction. Slippage isolates the financial difference between the price where your algorithm signaled a trade and the actual fill price you received from the broker. It quantifies the combined penalties of network latency, widening bid-ask spreads, and a thin order book during periods of high volatility. This brings us to step 3, which is the gross P&L. When we subtract the slippage penalty from the theoretical signal, we arrive at the realized market return. The original edge of 295% has been crushed down to under 10%. Slippage acts as the price of admission to a live exchange. Consistently high slippage values indicate that a strategy is either reacting too slowly or attempting to push order sizes that the current liquidity cannot support. Step 4 in the pipeline is commission. Unlike slippage, broker commissions are strictly volume dependent. In this dataset, the commission total hits 162.23%. Finally, we reach step 5, the net P&L. This is the only number that actually impacts your available margin budget. Net P&L is the final result of the tension between signal quality and transaction friction. A viable algorithm has to survive both. This diagram introduces a second layer of diagnostics beyond simple profit and loss. We use this to evaluate entry and exit efficiency. If a price drops to 80 and peaks at 200, there is a maximum potential profit of 120 units. Total efficiency calculates the exact percentage your robot actually captured. We divide this further into entry efficiency, which measures how close the algorithm bought to the absolute lowest price, and exit efficiency, which measures proximity to the peak. A low exit efficiency score isolates a specific mechanical flaw. It typically indicates that the strategy is relying on suboptimal trailing stops or taking profits far too early in a trend. By tracking these metrics, a developer stops asking if a trade was profitable and calculates exactly how much potential profit was left on the table. The final layer of complexity comes from capital management. The amount of budget allocated to a trade directly distorts the raw performance of the underlying strategy. This table compares the unweighted percentage, which isolates the pure performance of the algorithm's rules, against the weighted percentage, which factors in how effectively the user scaled the budget up or down over time. This gives us a complete diagnostic matrix. If step 1, the theoretical signal, is negative, you must rewrite the core rule set. If the gap between the theoretical signal and realized return is too large in steps 2 and 3, you either need a more liquid symbol or a smaller order size. And if step 4's commissions are excessive, you must reduce trade frequency. Applying all of these strict corrections transforms a strategy from a system leaking capital into a stabilized net positive pipeline. Sophisticated algorithmic trading requires equal attention to both sides of the equation. It is the practice of optimizing the predictive signal while systematically minimizing the cost to execute it.